How is everybody doing tonight? All right. I almost felt like I was channeling my twin there for a minute, but we're not going to do that tonight. But I'm so glad you're here tonight. We're so glad that you're here tonight. We're going to spend a few minutes together in some thoughts about God and being faithful to our faithful God. We have had quite the week already. I know it's only Wednesday night, but we've had quite the week of Vacation Bible School together. I'm thankful we're able to spend now this last night together. We do have, in a few minutes, we are going to enjoy some other activities together. But I encourage you, if you've got a copy of God's Word, you've got a Bible this evening, to turn to Hebrews. What chapter? Hebrews 11. I almost tricked you because we're going to really focus on the first part of Hebrews 12 for just a few minutes, although we are going to read the first, or the last part, rather, of Hebrews chapter 11. Now, I began this week personally by preaching a sermon Sunday morning here on Hebrews 11. And for the life of me, I could not keep Moses out of the ark. It seemed like he was just stuck there with Noah on the ark, right? Well, here's what I was really doing, okay? And last night I had Joseph as Moses and all that. Well, here's what I was doing, okay? What if Moses and Noah were brothers? Can you imagine that? Can you see this? What's Moses doing? He's parting the Red Sea like Moses did by God's power, and Noah's saying, hey, stop that. And he can't. He just keeps parting the sea on the ark. Now, of course, they were not brothers, and Noah was on the ark. Moses was never on the ark. But you might imagine what it would have been like if two of our characters were siblings. They are a part of the family of the faithful. And so as we make our way to Hebrews 11 tonight, let's think about what it means to be faithful as a Christian. Be faithful as someone tonight who maybe wants to become a Christian someday. What does it look like to be faithful to Jesus? And so as we look at Hebrews chapter 11, I'm going to read some of the Bible with you tonight. Hebrews chapter 11, 39 and 40 is where we will begin our reading. This is the very end of this chapter. After all of the different people of faith, from Abel and Enoch and Abraham to Joseph and Moses, King David, many of the names that are behind us, or behind me rather, in front of you tonight. Then the writer says, Hebrews 11:39, that these all, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us, they should not be made perfect or whole. The idea is that all of these characters were looking to the time of Jesus, looking to the time, we would say, when people are becoming Christians and following Jesus. That the story was never complete at all until Jesus and His coming. And then as you read the first part of this next chapter, you read about a race. How many of you in here, how many of you have ever raced? Ever been in a race? Okay, most of us. I saw Mr. Ethan last night as his group was leaving the games. I saw him racing one of his kiddos. I might have caught a couple of pictures of that. He didn't know that until right now. I didn't put the pictures on the screen, Ethan, so you can be thankful for that. But when you're in a race, there are certain things you need. You need certain equipment sometimes. You need certain footwear. You might not want to run in your sandals. You might not want to run in cowboy boots. You might want some running shoes. And then the list keeps going from there of things you might need. And one of the things you need is you need to know what the race is like. I mean, what if your buddy is racing all the way across the parking lot and you thought you were racing halfway? Well, you'd probably win. Guess I should reverse that, right? You need to know what the race is going to be like. You also need some endurance if you're running very far. How many of you have ever ran a mile? Anybody in here know if they ran a mile? Okay. How many of you have ever run 2 miles? Okay. How many of you have ever run 100 miles? We got 1, 2. Okay. I'm not even going to try to raise my hand on that one. You need endurance. And endurance is a big word that means the way to keep on. You got to keep on racing. You got to have the power or the strength to keep on racing. And so let's look at Hebrews chapter 12 for just another moment. And the first part of Hebrews 12 says that we are surrounded by a cloud. That it's like we're on the racetrack, we're racing, And then there's this big cloud that comes up. And the cloud represents all of the people in Hebrews 11 that are standing there as witnesses or standing there saying, you can do this. All of these examples in Hebrews chapter 11 surround us tonight and help us to realize that it is possible to live a life of great faith. We've said it once or twice already this week that these people weren't perfect. How many of you are perfect? Don't raise your hand because somebody's going to raise their hand. Probably somebody over this direction. Nope, nobody in here tonight is perfect either. And although we want to know and we want to be reminded that Jesus is the example of how to live, sometimes part of why the Bible gives us these more normal examples is because we realize we'll never be quite what Jesus was. We want to try to be, but these people were regular people. They were not God in flesh like Jesus. They were just like you and I, and yet they were faithful. They're in the hall of the faithful. They remind us. And so somebody tell me, the hammer. Who had the hammer this week? It was Noah. Noah reminded us to do everything God tells us to do, or at least to try that. Okay, what's the next one? Who had the staff? Anybody remember? Was it? Well, Jesus is a shepherd too. Was it Moses? I don't think it was Moses. It started with an A. Abraham. Abraham had the staff. He was a shepherd. And Abraham and Sarah were here Monday night. I think that's right. They were here one night at least, and they reminded us that you're not always going to get it right when you try to do everything God says. But they also said, keep on going. Keep following God. Keep trusting in God, even when occasionally you make mistakes. All right, a couple more. The chair. Who sat in the chair last night? Joseph. Joseph, son of Jacob. Joseph reminded us that we're going to have bad things, even as people of faith. I know many of you up front here are on the younger side. Some of you have already experienced different problems and obstacles in your lives. You've made your share of mistakes already. We're all going to face those things. We're going to have bad things happen to us. We're going to sometimes do bad things. But Joseph reminded us to keep trusting God, even when life isn't so great, and that our faith can carry us through all the bad things that will happen in this life. The last one. What's the one out at the end there? What are those? The 10 Commandments, the 2 tablets that God gave Moses to give to the people. And I just gave away the answer, didn't I? Those belong to Moses. And Moses reminded us to not focus on ourselves, but to focus on God, to not focus on our own weaknesses, our own problems, our doubts, our mistakes and failures, but to focus on God and trust Him. We're surrounded by examples. But then this chapter tells us that we need to run the race, to run the Christian life with that endurance, to lay down the weights, those things that maybe it is our doubts, it's our sins that we have as we get older. And I had a backpack I was going to bring tonight. And I guess I took my backpack off and left it at home because I was supposed to take it off. Hebrews 12 says, take off your weight, take off your backpack. Who wants to run that 100 miles with a big heavy backpack on their back? Anybody going to volunteer? I figured we'd have one. There's always one. We got 2. We got Noah too back here. All right, now we're getting it's a bandwagon. But the Bible here says sometimes you need to lay certain things and leave them behind. Leave your mistakes behind you and move forward as you run the race for Jesus. We said there are going to be problems, there are going to be difficulties. Nobody says that living for Jesus is ever going to be easy in that way. It'll be tough sometimes, but run with endurance. And then here's the last one this evening. He also says that we are looking to the one who's already run the race. Because in any race you have, you need a goal, right? Who wants to just keep running and keep running and keep running? There's always one. I don't. I want to reach the goal. What's the goal of running the life of faith? Somebody said heaven. I'm going to say it's being in heaven with Jesus one day. And so we look to Jesus who has already been exalted as King. That's what Hebrews chapter 12 says. Now let's read it together now, and then we'll wrap this up. He says, Hebrews 12, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. And here it is, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated. He's exalted on high at the right hand of God. Jesus is the one who died on the cross, but he's also the one who walked out of the empty tomb. He's the one who sits on the throne of heaven. And so when we live life, we look to Jesus. We run this race to the goal of being with Jesus one day. Now, if anyone here would like to know more about becoming a follower of Jesus, would like to know more about what it means to be a part of his family, you might see me afterwards. You might come up and talk to Mr. Ethan or another member here, and we'd be glad to visit with you about that exciting step to follow Jesus. And I do encourage you to come join us Sunday morning. We have Bible classes and worship, and we'll continue together to grow together in our journey of faith. I'm thankful that we've been reminded, we've studied, and we've heard from these characters of great faith. And I'm thankful tonight that we can be encouraged to live faithful lives. To whom? What's his name? To Jesus. Thank you, kids, for being here tonight. Thank you, parents, holding things down back there. Appreciate it.